Hello, Michael. Good morning.
Hey Alex, good to see you.
Hi.
Good
Good to see
morning.
you. How's it going? Good morning, everybody. Good afternoon. Good evening.
Yeah,
And thank you for
yeah.
joining us.
Hello,
Hi.
hello everyone. Weekend, and you were not hit home too much, and also your guns farm didn't suffer too much fun from it.
No, it passed by. So it was okay. But
Okay.
it looked pretty it looked pretty scary.
Yeah,
So there,
totally,
yeah,
totally.
yeah.
Yeah, perhaps at some point we can do one session on like weather data and like storm trajectories by that. I'm not guess data available that we can put in the graph as such,
Yeah.
but it
Yeah,
could
I
be
think
could be interesting.
there are a couple of applications. I know a couple of years ago there was this. I think it's the Dutch weather service that used Neo4j for
Hmm.
their overall systems.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Okay, interesting. Yeah. So if you're watching, let us know where you're watching from, and an episode today. It's all about books, so we'll arts content. so
lots of
so
exactly. Yeah.
that will be really good. Cool. Sounds good.
How was your? We had a fun thing on Friday. So we have something called a wellness day. So everybody in the company gets a day off and gets to spend it as they like. So I went to the mountains hiking, and because it was a beautiful day on Friday, uh, and we were sitting outside in a hut on the mountain. Then thunderstorm rolled in,
Nice.
and then we had to hide
Run
and
in, run
and
inside and
exactly. But until then, it
hide
was
for.
it was it was super good.
Nice,
So
nice.
yeah.
Yeah, I mostly spent it in an article that I've been working on for a while now on bytecode code generation in Java. So it's a little bit unrelated theme, but actually Neo4j also uses bytecode generation under the hood for optimize queries to execute faster. So it's a little bit related from that perspective.
Okay.
And I went to the park, which was nice because the weather was good. And the weekend we had our I don't know what you call this in English, like adolescent ceremony for my 40th. So
Hmm.
it's the non-religious version of
Oh
of
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
confirmation, communion, and so it was good. We had a lot of sushi to eat, so she wanted to go to a sushi
Was
place
that the
with the
wish?
family.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really good. So that
Yeah.
was that was a lot of fun. And I mean, lots of ice cream as well. So that was perfect,
That's
perfect food. Yeah.
very good. Yeah. Okay. So I have a little sound issue. So I don't know if it's me or if it's you. Probably it's me. But if
I mean, I
I
can
hear
also switch to
some
the other. Let
sometimes
me
I hear
see.
you like a double
If I switch my input
twice
from the
basically.
external microphone ports, so is this better or can you see?
Yeah, I think it is better.
Okay.
It was not. I didn't hear myself, but
Okay,
I kind of heard you
okay,
like twice.
okay. Let's see if that's better.
It's a little bit quiet, so let's.
Okay,
But I think you can
then
boost you a little bit, so I think that should be
yeah,
good.
let me see. Input. Oh, it's already maximum input here in the system at least.
I increased your sound a little bit, so I think that
Okay,
should.
super.
I hope that works.
Otherwise, I
If
need to yell really loud.
Yeah, now it's getting quiet again. Hopefully that works. If Michael is not good to understand, then let us know.
Yep,
Otherwise, we'll see if we can sort it out. All
yep.
right, let's go. And yeah, here it is. We want to do AuraDB free today. Quick recap before we dive in, though. Graph Connect is coming up in 2 weeks already, so it's really close. So actually, yes, today in 2 weeks is training day, and then Tuesday, Wednesday,
Yeah,
actual conference with lots of interesting sessions, lots of tracks, and a good overall experience and lots of fun with the community. So hope you can make it. If you still think about it and are on the fence about it, we have a 50% off. Actually, we do have a 50% off discount. So this is 25% what we have, 50% off discount, which is a Community 50. So if you enter Community 50 in the buying process, you get even a better discount than what it says here. I will post that code into the chat in a second.
Super. It's a really good one. Yeah, we'll be there and we'll have a lot of fun. We have Dev Zone, we have good talks, good technical talks, and it's definitely worthwhile going there and joining your fellow Craftisters.
Absolutely.
In Austin.
Yeah. But today we're going to do hands-on with AuraDB free. So I'll give a quick recap what AuraDB free is. We pick a data set and think about what kind of questions we will ask, determine a data model, and do some loading and querying of that data to get a few answers on our questions. If you got a data set you'd like us to explore, send it over. We're happy to have a look at it and see if it would work for this session. So that's an opportunity here. What are we going to do is books. So Goodreads data set. We found this data set on Kaggle on Goodreads and check out some data there. And load this into AuraDB free. AuraDB free is the obviously free version of Neo4j AuraDB, which is the graph database as a service in the cloud. You get basically all the features you get otherwise, but it's limited to 50,000 nodes and 175,000 relationships. So that's plenty, right? I mean, you get enough space to try things out, to work with it, to play with it, to load your data, to do some queries. So it's enough space, and in terms of nodes and relations, it's enough to get started. If you want to then expand this, you can always upgrade to a professional edition. You get access to Neo4j Bloom in browser, which we'll see today as well. It's free forever, so that's the big difference between what you might have known as the Neo4j Sandbox, which was limited to a maximum of 10 days and then would go away. This stays with you as long as you like. I'll post a link in chat where you can enroll yourselves and start it up for you. So it's
and you can actually code along if you want to. Then that's something that you can do today as well if you want to, and if not, then you can go back to the recording of the session and look things up if you need to, as such.
Exactly. So that's
there's one thing that we probably want to mention, right? So which is Aura office hours is it next Tuesday also?
Yes.
I'll probably also mention it next week again, but just to already let you know that it's happening. So that's something where Alex, David, and I will answer questions, right?
That's a great point. I'll post that link in chat also in a second. So we have something called the office hour. So that's our open forum Q&A session for everybody, but we will focus on Aura. So if you have any questions around Aura, but beyond that, even, I mean, it's open. So we kind of we accept all questions really. But if there's anything you'd like an answer for, you're stuck with, you don't know how to do it best, if you need some guidance, if you need some support whatsoever, join us then. It's taking place on the 31st of May, so next Tuesday. And we hope to see you there. The link, where is it? Here it is. I'll post it here. So there's a registration page for that. You can register there and also submit your questions already ahead of time. So you don't have to do it on the spot. You can think about it. Okay, books, Goodreads. So if you don't know what Goodreads is, this is my page basically open. So it's like a social network for books. So you say what kind of books you're currently reading. You can enroll to the yearly reading challenge. I'm apparently one book behind, but I read a very thick one, so that's my excuse recently. So that maybe counts as two. And and then you get recommendations, and you can track what books you want to read, what kind of books you already read. Accordingly, then you can see what your friends are reading, and then what other people recommend, and then you get what I like quite nicely. They also give you recommendations, obviously, of what if you read this book and you can give it a rating, and other people gave the same rating to a different book, then you get recommendations on this, and this is it's a nice
endless
page.
supply of books to read.
Exactly, endless supply of books.
The only drawback, it doesn't bring the time along for the
No,
books to read.
that's true.
That would be really the killer application if there was
Yeah.
a page that brought you the
Yes.
time along to read the
Yeah.
books. That would be the best.
That's
Yeah.
true. Yeah, it's nice. The obviously the page is English, and I mean there are books from other languages, but it's more in the English reading world, I think. So if you are looking for non-English books, it's a little bit more difficult to get recommendations for those. But if you're reading in English, then this works very well, I think, and it got me a couple of very good recommendations and very good
Cool.
good tracks of books. So yeah, I'm using it a lot, and I'm keeping track of what
So you're the
I've read.
expert. I actually don't have a Goodreads account myself. I mean, we have tons of books, of course, but I'm always too unorganized to track my progress and things like that. So that's kind of the challenge that
Yeah,
I have mostly.
because I have this is what I'm using it most is the books I want to read. So this gives you
Yeah,
like
so
gives you like
reading list
reading
to
list,
do.
exactly,
Yeah.
and a kind of a to do. It grows ever
Yeah,
longer. So
yeah,
it's very hard at some point to
yeah.
you
Keep
know
track.
you
Yeah.
exactly you add more on top, and then you still haven't caught up with from the bottom, but still
Mm.
it is very helpful for um,
Yeah.
yeah, for tracking that, and to keeping those books in mind you wanted to read at some point, and then
Yeah.
yeah,
Sounds. Yeah, it's really cool.
yeah.
I because I just saw Dragons and they're on the list. If you haven't read it, a really funny book series is The Last Dragon Slayer from Jasper Ford. That's a very entertaining and very fun one. Very unexpected things that happen there, but it's
Yeah,
it's really good. Just for not for serious reading, but for fun reading.
for fun reading. Yeah, this is most of fun reading here.
Yeah,
This is,
exactly.
yeah,
Cool. So let's get started with the data
yeah.
and everything, right? So cool. Sounds good. So I just put up the office hours page that Alex mentioned, so that you see that it's on the 31st in the afternoon, actually, or in the evening for people from India. But hopefully you can still make it, and it's also recorded, and you can watch it later as well. So you can
Exactly.
also submit
Yeah.
your session questions and then see the answers later on. Cool. Before we get started with the data, let's create the instance in Aura. So you just log into AuraDB, and then you can create a new instance. So let's do this. We call it Goodreads, and pick a location close to me, and I'll pick an empty database to start with. And then it shows me a password that I need to copy and save, and click on continue. And then my Goodreads database is here, and we come back in 2-3 minutes to actually get working on that as such. Cool. So I just copied the password somewhere. So I was working on datasets. So our colleague Jennifer has a dataset on Goodreads, but it's a little bit large right now for Aura. It might change in the future. But I basically just went to Kaggle and looked for Goodreads datasets, and there are quite a lot of different ones. And I picked one that actually fits almost within our limits. So what's nice about Kaggle, it gives you like an overview over the files. So these are all CSV files, and you see that's 10,000 books in here. There are distributions. There are like authors for the books as well, and so on. Right. So that's kind of the books file, ISBN, and all this good stuff. And that's the books file. Then there's a ratings file, which has also 10,000 books, different books, and has 53,000 ratings, which is also good for us as such, and then a rating column from 1 to 5, basically, as a rating. Right? So that's also nice in terms of volume. So that's something that we can use. There's also a to read that Alex just mentioned. It's basically the reading list. So that's another 50,000. So we'll leave this off for now, but it's something that you can use later if you want to, because it would add too much to our database. But just for you to know that this is also available. And then there's something else which I was quite surprised by. So I thought, okay, books is 3 megabytes, right? And then book tags is 16 megabytes. So I thought, what happened here? So they have basically 600,000 tags for these 10,000 books, basically.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But that also means that there is like a ton of, can you sort this actually by descending? Ascending, sorry. Does it do this? Oh, here. So there's a ton of tags that have either no usage or like 1, 2, 3 times being used. So it's kind of people creating random tags for themselves or accidentally or
for
whatever.
their own lists,
So
maybe,
there's
or
a ton
something.
of not so useful data in here. So what I did is basically after downloading the file, I cut out all the single-digit and double-digit counts of the ratings.
Okay, yeah, that
we
makes
get
sense.
down from 500,000 tags to a little bit less, so like 28,000 or so. And the tag count actually, so the tags are currently 34,000 tags, and you see already like on the tag names, it's really whatever nomenclature this is, I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
So this also gets cut down to 2,000 tags basically if you use only tags with at least triple digit, so 100 plus things. All right. So you basically download the file, unzip it, and then it's in your on your disk basically. I can actually show you what it looks like. So it's basically a bunch of files here, and so let's see. It's book file, for instance, right? So it's pretty straightforward. And what I did is for processing. I think I showed it already before. I really like to use XSV for looking at things. For instance, I could say XSV stats. Let's say book text.csv, and I want to have also cardinality. So it would look at the book and the file and says kind of for this column, this is this type. That's the sum of all values. It's not so useful, but min length, max length, and standard deviation. And then it's cardinality, actually, how many different ones are in here, right? So, and we see already that there are like 34,000 unique tags in here, right? And if I do XSV count, then it tells us, actually, we can also, if you want to see a nicer format, we can also say XSV table, then it formats it as a table.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Which is nice. And if we use XSV count, then it actually says it's almost 1 million rows basically in here, right? So it's a little bit too much for our
a little bit.
So what I did is there's also a join operation. So what I did is basically XSV join. I joined the on the tag ID the tags with a reduced books file, but actually we could actually do, just to show you how this works, is I would say I joined this on book tags, and then if I paste this to XSV count, it should again be 99 million rows, right? But what I then can say, I want to search on the count column, and because this takes regular expressions, I can just say I want to have at least a digit of 3 or more columns, because it kind of treats this digit as a string. So I can say 3 or more characters of numbers, basically, right? And then if I do XSV count here again, then it should reduce this quite dramatically. So it's only 120,000, And then I can basically turn this into an, again, book text file where I select only the columns, so kind of tag ID, book ID
okay.
and count into this file, and then the tag ID and tag name into the other file. And then the only thing that I have to do, because that's something that XSV unfortunately doesn't contain, which I don't know why, is kind of turning it into unique values. That's something that I then just used the unique shell command to turn like unique tag ID and book tag name as such. But it was pretty straightforward. And so it's pretty something. Command line tooling can be something useful to also deal with large CSV files, right? So this is this is not gigantic, it's only 16 gigabytes or so, 60 megabytes. But these tools like SSV is written in Rust and does multi-threading behind the scenes, so it can also deal with multi-gigabyte CSV files pretty easily, which is really useful and has a lot of cool operations that it can do on the data. So
that's a cool tool. Yeah, that's very.
It's really nice and useful tool.
Yeah.
Cool. So we now have our files. So we have our book text reduced, our books, our ratings, our tags reduced. These are the ones that we want to look at. If you have more room in your database, you can also add the to read list as well. But that's what we're going to use now in Aura as such.
Yeah, or people could potentially export their own to read list, which is probably not 60,000 books, but less.
Yeah, exactly. You can export your own as well.
And then they can compare maybe.
Now our database is running. So you see it says running, and now we have different options. We can do an explore query, but it's nothing in the database yet, so probably not so useful. What we want to look at is import, which is the data importer tool, which helps us a lot because it deals really well with CSV files. So I just say browse and just take my CSV files, book. So that should be all of them. And how this works is you have your CSV files here on the left side, and then in the middle you create your graph model, and then on the right side you map the CSV to the graph model, right? So you would start with our main element, which is a book, right?
Yep.
So you either can start mapping immediately, so that's one option. So for instance, if I pick books here and say my CSV and say add properties for files, so I would say book ID. I don't actually know what best book ID is. I also don't know what work ID is, but I would use ISBN, the publication year, I'm not sure, the two titles, language, average rating, ratings count, and I leave off all the other ratings because I don't know what they are, and would add like the image URLs as well to our books. Right? Cool. And then I say confirm. It adds all of these things. You can select an ID property, which is our book ID. So you see also that the circle around gets from dashed into a solid. So that also means that this is now ready mapped. And what we can do is this year, we probably want to.
That changed, right? I mean, if you've used the data importer before, it gave you a little arrow confirming that it's all set, but now it's
yeah, exactly.
Visual Q is different.
So that's Visual Q is different, exactly. So I just turned the year into an integer and rename the column to a year. We can probably also rename language code into just language, which is nicer. Average rating is very likely a floating point number, and rating count is probably an integer, and the rest is okay. Right. So this is kind of our book. So if you hit run import now, it would only import the books. But of course, this is not yet a graph, right? So these are lonely nodes that have no connections, relationships anywhere. Right?
We need to add a few things.
Exactly. So one thing that's also in the books file itself, actually, so we can drag out a node here, and which is the author, right? Unfortunately, in the Goodreads file, this is kind of a single field. If you see here the books file, you see that the author is like comma separated list as such. So it's something that we can probably do after the fact, basically
split out.
Pull out to spread them out, depending on how much room we have left in our database, in our Aura database. But what we can do is we can just say our author is actually just coming from our books file, and we add just the property authors here, which you also use as ID, right? So you can actually change this to author. So it's kind of singular. So this will be not 100% correct, but it kind of gets the idea of what happened here. So we say the author wrote the book, and our mapping comes again from the books file from the authors to the book ID. Right? So when you see it now, it becomes also solid. So it's kind of ready mapped. So the other aspect, so you also see on the left side, what's green is actually good to go. So we can actually fold in the books CSV file because we have done this already. The next one is tags, where we just again pull out a tag node. And our tags is the text used, and we add basically all. So you can also click on the all, little all thing here on top. And it has the tag ID and the name. You can probably also rename this just into name, and we can leave the tag ID, it's fine. And our ID is tag ID. And then we map the relationships, which is the book text that used. So it's a dedicated file basically for the connection between book and book and tag. And we have an extra property count here, which we then turn also into an integer. So how many people have used this tag for this book, basically, as such. Right, and we should also need to give it a name, like tagged, as such. Okay, and the last one, so we have done the tag. So the last one that's left is kind of ratings. So we have a user here. For the user, we have only user ID as such. So what we do is we take the ratings file and just steal the user ID from the ratings file as such. So it will only create unique users, so it's not a big deal if the user appears multiple times in the ratings file as such. And then we can say rated, so you can also add the relationship type name here directly in the UI. Reverse this, and then the user rated this book. And that's what our ratings file is good for, which has the user ID, the book ID, and the rating itself. 1 to 5. Again, it's an integer. Right. So, and now if you look at all the files, they are mostly green, except for the books file where we left off some of the properties that we are not interested in. And it was only mapping in like 5 minutes, right? So it's really nice and easy to get this quick. Yeah. This existing model. And imagine we also want to add the to read, then we would add just here another relationship that says interested or something like that. And then we would add the to read file basically as such, right? So, but this unfortunately this doesn't fit into our database right now. Cool. And with this, we can actually click on run import. Only have to provide a password, which I stored here somewhere. Just copy this and click on run import, and we'll start importing the data. You have a progress bar here, and while it's doing that, we can actually already look at the data with query, which again asks us for a password, which we still have around here. And so currently it shows us just the structure, so that we have like authors, books, tags, and already 27,000 elements imported. But what we can say is we find all our nodes and return labels of node as label, count star. So we see actually what data is already in our database. So we have 10,000 books, 4,600 authors, 2,081 tags. That's the one that we talked about, and 20,000 users. So that's good. So it already 25,000 users. So it's almost done with all the nodes, and now it will start importing the relationships as such. So it's at 34% and will run further such. So we end up at almost 50,000 nodes. So with this data set, we're actually close to the limit. And actually, to be honest, we exceed the limit a little bit, and it complains a little bit. But for what we want to show, it's actually good enough, right? So I mean, if you want to get all the data in, you can upgrade your instance to an Aura Pro instance. But I think for what we want to show, it's more than enough. Also, if you want to see any of the books, you can just click on the book links, and then you have here like the Fellowship of the Ring, and you have the URLs, so you can also see the image URLs as well, and you have all the other information there too, like rating count, small image, title and original title, the year. The only thing that's kind of weird is that the ISBN 13 thing is kind of broken. So that's something.
Yeah, maybe
I think it's kind of related to the CSV parser that's used
maybe
here,
in the CSV.
and which is in JavaScript, and because JavaScript thinks it's a number in the CSV, so it tries to turn it into number, and then it turns it into floating point number because it doesn't fit anymore. But the ISBN 10 at least fits. So that's something that we can probably in the future address as such. So you see, it took 1 minute 46 to import all this data. So to run all these files, in total, it's I think 50 megabytes or so that it kind of sent to the server in terms of data. And you see, it created the books, the users, the tags itself, the rating. So it didn't add 4,000 nodes for users, which I think is okay. 4,800 nodes. We have all the authors here as well, and the tags were also added, and a bunch of ratings have not been added. So 12,000 ratings, which is also I think okay for our needs.
Right, yeah.
Right. So it's only like a small percentage that didn't fit into our database. If you don't have Neo4j browser or query open yet, then it kind of you can click on this button and it opens basically also the screen to show you a little bit of data. Cool. The other things that you have here is tags, where we actually want to see the tag name. So you see it's a little bit hard to read. Let me pick a different color and make it a little bit bigger. So I hope this is a little bit easier to read.
That's better. Yeah, perfect.
So you have some weird ratings and also kind of duplicates attacks, right? So there's there's also duplicate tags that might be actually could be folded together as well, right?
Yeah.
But you get the idea at least, right? So that's something that we could actually later go on and merge, because it seems that people kind of gave the same, like dystopia. This has a different I, if you can see this. Someone misspelled the I with the accent.
Yeah.
So this is something that could use some cleanup, I guess, in Goodreads as well. in a way, or ebook and ebooks. I mean, there should be some curation basically on the site, basically to deal with this kind of stuff, right? Otherwise, it becomes
messy.
A little bit messy. But still, we can look at kind of what are frequently used tags in our book selection. And then we have our authors, which are currently the comma separated list. So we don't have too much room. So how many authors do we have actually right now? Let's see. 4,400. So what we could do, we could try to actually split them off and see what happens. Let's see. What can we do with split an author on comma? So we have these names, and then we turn these names into rows, and then we can say basically we merge an author with this new name. So this is our new node with the split out name basically. It might be the same if it was only one author before, then it might be the same node. So what we can is actually say where n is not equal of a. That's when we need to delete the old node, right? And we actually want to create a new relationship between the author and the book wrote. Or did I call it write? I meant wrote. I misspelled it. So no, I called it wrote, right? That is a What? This is really weird. Right, so because it code wrote here. Okay. So the author wrote a book and or more books. And so we take our book. We have our new author. If it's not the same node, so if it had more than one, we basically delete the old node and then connect the new node, the new author node to the book. Okay, let's try what happens. It could be that it kind of fails with size of with size of the database, but I'm not sure. Let's see. Could have probably also done a trim on the name. I'm not sure if there are like spaces on the left and right side extra. But let's see. And we should have probably created an index on our constraint. Or let me do this first. Then we run this because that's probably then better. Okay, we got closer to our limit and deleted 10,000 relationships and created 13,000 new relationships, and now we have 5,800 authors. So, and now all our authors should actually be single name authors, as you can see, right? And some of them should actually have more than one book. So that's actually something that we can see is when we say where the size of the number of relationships of the author is greater than 1, right? So then return and limit.
You credited 1.
Oh, so yeah, greater than 1. Right, so they wrote more than one book. So we can basically pick them and expand them, and then we see, oh, this Rag or Anne Frank wrote, or actually has assigned to multiple books. Dan Brown is probably prolific, right? And so we see that like Tolkien has all his books, and so it seems to be a very good coverage already. So these are authors, and actually what we can actually do, we can get the top performing ones. We can actually return the author and the size as books, and then order by size books descending. So we find our author and our size, number of books that they wrote. We just return them as a value, and then we get the top 20, and we see the top author James Patterson wrote 98 books, and
98
Stephen
books,
King
wow.
97.
Stephen King 97.
Wow,
That's a lot of books.
That's a lot of books. And I mean, I know that Terry Pratchett wrote a lot of books, but I wasn't aware that Stephen King actually had almost 100
No, it's
books.
97. Wow.
Wow, this is really impressive.
Very productive.
So that means if we find, let's say, Stephen King here and expand his node, we should have a lot of books.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, there might be some that have like spelling mistakes or stuff like that, but I think
it could
looks
be
actually pretty, because I guess that they merged them on ISBN, actually in Goodreads. But pretty impressive. Perhaps different translations as well, but it's really impressive, right? So prolific authors here.
Yeah.
So
and then it's not even small books, right? I mean, most of his books are.
Some of them,
bigger ones.
Some of them are smaller, but many are. Dark Towers, I think, has not so many pages. It's a really good book, but
Dark Tower is a great series. Yeah, if you have not read it, read it.
Yeah,
that's really good.
Right, so really interesting to see them, right? And then you can also see what books have more than one author, basically. This is where we basically flip this around, where we don't say author, but we would say book, find me the book, which basically has more than one road relationship as such, right? Or we can actually do the same as we had here. We just flip everything around. So this is our book. And then we need to inverse the direction. So someone wrote this book, so that's the number of authors, and we did sort it by authors, which is not as interesting, right? So it's basically just the books that have a lot of authors as such. So so this book has 47 authors.
Okay.
Or that's probably like anthologies and
exactly.
things like that, right? So that have a lot of authors. So, but what's it called? The Portable Atheist for the Non-Believers. Improbable Adventures of Sherlock Holmes. That sounds like almost fan fiction. Where's the improbable? Here. Can actually make the books also a bit bigger because they are really important. So these are all the authors basically that the blue ones.
The blue, and then we see the
wrote.
text as well.
And then we also see tags like Sherlock Holmes, short stories, mystery, to read, currently reading, which are reasonable tags, right? So these make sense, basically. So we could also see which other books have been tagged with Sherlock Holmes, for instance, and then we see, okay, these are other books that look like this. And this is actually something that we could actually say, we can express this as a query, right? So we can just say tag name Sherlock Holmes. And we want to see all the books that are tagged with this tag. And we just return everything here. Let's also return the relationship. So this is kind of what we just did manually, the expansion, right? And then if you wanted to, so these are our books. We can also add the authors to this query. The authors, then we would see as a larger graph, basically the books, and there's Arthur Conan Doyle probably in the middle of it, right? So who wrote like all the original Sherlock Holmes books, and then you have like people that wrote either stories around it or his kids basically that continued his work, or he co-wrote it also sometimes with other folks, as you can see here, right? So these are some that have been written by Arthur Conan Doyle, and this is kind of this anthology that has been like written by lots of other people, including like Neil Gaiman and Stephen Baxter and others, right? So it looks actually like an interesting one as well. So you can look at the picture, and yeah, that's pretty small, the images, right?
Yeah, the image is a bit small.
It's not even the small image URL, it's the image URL.
Exactly. Small.
Yeah. But so that's something that we can do. As something else that we could do with this tagging is basically to see, right? We had this dystopia tag before. Dystopia. Or actually, you can say, let's find all the tags where t.name contains dystopia, right? Or actually dystop, because the I was different in one of them, right? And then what you can see is basically not the authors, but you could, for instance, see what other tags are there that people tag dystopian books by, right? And then we can say, what's the other tag's name? And how frequent has it been used? So we can see kind of what is oftentimes related with dystopian books, right? And I also just add here as and not other name. We don't want to have the dystopia tags again, so we only use
So we get something that is not like dystopia and dystopias or
PN
something.
and exactly. So limit 20 or so. Right. So this is kind of really nice because this is kind of what you can draw out on a whiteboard, right? So books that have been tagged by something, what else have they been tagged with? So this is basically a for join in a relation database. Basically, it's a single line here, and then you basically can just limit it, and then you basically group it and return the data. And okay, to read is currently reading is kind of obvious.
Yeah,
Favorite,
this is the
fiction,
standard tag
fiction.
from Goodreads. Right. So you put it
fantasy,
as to read or,
okay, fantasy, interesting, young adult, books I own, yeah.
That's young adult.
Yeah. Young adult. Okay. Romance, dystopian, no romances. Okay. Audiobook,
Maybe. Yeah.
post-apocalyptic owned. Okay,
Post-apocalyptic kind of works, yeah.
yeah, what we can do is actually we can also skip 20. So if you don't look at the too frequent ones, so then we have adventure, sci-fi, audiobooks, teen. And here you have also like the duplicates, right? So ebook and ebooks,
Yeah.
sci-fi, fantasy, it's mixed. Yeah, it's also kind of explainable, right? So I mean, dystopian futures oftentimes, so that's why sci-fi and sci-fi fantasies are in there as such. Would be also interesting to actually tag or annotate tags if this is in like more like an category or genre tag or like an ownership tag or an, you know, if they had some additional information on the tag, what does it represent basically, right? So is this more like a category or a genre, or is this more like an, you know, just tagging ownerships and things like that, right? Okay, the next thing that we can look at is actually something like recommendations, right? So because we imported our users and their ratings as well, right? So here we have all these rating relationships, and actually we can put this on display as well, so we can see how many people rated what with which rating. Yeah, I can probably just increase the font, the browser size. So it's not sure if that's much better to see or much easier to see here. Let's see. So perhaps now you can see that it now has the numbers here, right? So this is kind of people. So you see that someone who read like Dune, Harry Potter a lot, and so if you take this person here, just as such, so they rated like a bunch of books, like 20 or so, perhaps in total, roughly. We could actually look it up. So the user ID is 314. So we can actually say we find our user with user ID 314, and we say what kind of did they rate, right? So this is return this, right? So this is this user with his books, and it has 16 relationships. So imagine we want to recommend something for this user. What would we do? So we would actually say, oh, look, they rated perfume with 3 only. Such a good story. Anyway, so imagine you wanted to recommend something for this user, right? So then you would say, okay, how do I do this? So I need to find either I could go via the tags that are assigned to the books that they're rated positively, or the authors as such. So let's do something simple where we start with like an author, like a content-based recommendation, which is like author-based, right? So where we say, okay, these books have been written by an author, and this author also wrote other books, right? Recommendation books, right? And then we also only want to recommend the ones that have, let's say 4 or more as a rating, right? Where R dot rating is greater than or greater or equal to 4, right? Limit 10. So this would be like give us W1. So this would give us a little bit of a visual representation of what this would look like. So we have the user who rated this book with 4, right?
Yeah.
And then via this book we get to the author here, Robert Heinlein, and then basically can say what else has he written, right?
Yeah.
So one thing that we can do is we can also use the average rating here of these books as an additional limitation. And then we can also see how frequently these books pop up. So this is not so often with the author, but let's say if he just used the Rico rating basically as an let's say Rico dot rating, Rico comma author the name Rico title order by Rico dot what is it average rating descending limit 10 or something like that, right? Let's also return the rating as well, right? So this would kind of say, okay, this pattern that we just said, and give us the top 10 books from that list across all the authors, right? So that's not just for one author, but for all the authors, basically, as such. So, and okay, what we forgot, of course, is, and not, we don't want to have the user have already rated the book that we want to recommend, right? So because if you've already read it, then that's kind of pointless. So, of course, I think they already rated like some of the Harry Potter books, then that's probably not what you want to know. Also, one thing that might be interesting here is, you have box sets, non-box sets, individual books, and so on. So what would be also interesting for this data set is basically if you have something like in relationship or like in Notion, this is the same book as or similar book as or something like that, right? So that would be nice to filter them out, that you would say, okay, it's not the same book as something that, but it's not in the data yet, so you would have to do it via some external data source that has connects ISBNs of different sets of books basically together and say, hey, this book is contained into this one other book, or this is a translation of this other book, or Okay, so if you run this, okay, the Harry Potter box sets stay on top.
They stay in there, yeah.
Yeah, because they are. So if we want to exclude them and not Rico.title contains Harry. So then we have Lord of the Rings, Hobbit.
Then we got the same issue.
Yeah, it has the same. But Fantastic Beasts might be actually be origin in there.
Good.
What's kind of interesting is that the Fantastic Beasts are in here twice. Perhaps because there's multiple authors, so we can also just return distinct, basically. Right. Dune trilogy. Here also see like spaces at the end of the data and things like that.
Yeah. Here
but you have some other
fringe
other
benefits
things.
of fail and the importance of imagination. That's a different one. It's also rounding, of course. Yeah.
Right. So, but you can also say, okay, I don't want to have the top 10, but I want to have like skip 20 and then get the ones, right? So, which then have probably some more interesting bits, right?
Yep. That's now, yeah.
So that's a recommendation based on the authors. But what would be actually more interesting is because this is something where you would basically say, okay, if I don't have other users' ratings, basically, right? If this is kind of the only user that rated books and I don't have other users' ratings available. But what we actually can do is we can create something similar for collaborative filtering. Collaborative filtering means basically you find your peer group of people with similar interests as you have, and then you look what they have rated positively that you have not read or rated yet, right? So it's basically things, kind of people that liked what you liked, or people that bought what you bought, or something like that, or bought also, basically, right? So people that bought blah also bought this other thing, right? So the typical recommendation. And actually in a graph database, it's really simple to do this. So if we just take our query here again. So what we want to have, we go all the way here. This is the book that the person rated, right? So then we find the peers that also rated books, right? What we want to say, the peers should be very similar to our user, right? So either they should have rated the books exactly the same or almost the same, basically, right? Because if it doesn't mean that they should just like the books that you like, but they should also dislike the books that you dislike, basically, right? Then they are your real peers, right? So otherwise you only see like half of the picture, right? So what we can actually say here is, the absolute difference between r.rating and minus r2.rating should be less or equal to 1, right? So it should be either plus minus 1 or something like that, right? So you could also say it's 0, then they're exactly the same as you, but oftentimes you don't have so much overlap, 100% overlap. But that's basically people where the difference between their rating and your rating is at most 1. So if you rated something 5, then they might have rated 4. If you rated something 3, they might have rated it 4 or 3 or 4 or 2 or something like that.
Okay.
Right. So you can narrow it down. If you say like equals 0, then that's basically exactly the same, but less or equal to 1 is oftentimes better. So these are now our peers, our friends, right?
Yep.
That have the same taste as we have. And then you say also they rated the recommendations, and this is where you want to say, let's put these on different lines. So it's so we can probably comment out. So we still want to have that the person itself didn't read the book yet, right?
Yeah.
And the last thing that we want to add is and where the R3 rating should be high, right? So it should be greater or equal to 4 or something like that, right? So the recommended
They
book should
actually
have
liked
been,
it. Yeah.
they should have liked it, right? Not hated it. I
Hey,
mean,
we recommend you this
except
book. I hated it.
except if you have a friend which you want to kind of prank or something like that, then you give them a book that they would really hate. But that's
Yeah.
probably also done just a waste of time as such. And what we can do now is basically for this recommendation, we actually look also at how often did it show up in our data set. So we can say Rico count star. So it's basically how often across the different peers did one book show up, right? So did only one person in my whole peer group rate this book positively, or like the 20 people rated positively? So did the same book show up 20 times, right? Which is quite nice. And then we can say basically, for instance, what we can say is we can either just sort them by frequency, basically, and return that as such. Order by frequency, return Rico.title, and frequency and probably rating Rico and rating. And then we basically aggregate all the books if they show up multiple times into one occurrence and count how often they come up. And then we see what's in there. So
you miss an S count line 6 count star S frequency.
Oh yeah, right. But also we have an end somewhere. And not although this was somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
And so we have Harry again, so we probably want to add the Harry line. Okay, yeah. Oh, this is interesting. Now we have Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, right? So which the person themselves haven't read as such, but it's kind of not here nor there. Travels in Europe. That's I think it's Mark Twain. I think so, right?
I think so. Yeah.
This is actually something where we in the graph can from here we can do another match basically where we get the authors basically as such, right? And then we just return collect author.name as authors, because there could be more than one, right?
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So we see actually who kind of wrote this. Oh no, it was Bill Bryson. Okay, yeah, Bill did also do this talking, but this is now not via the authors of the book, but this is really via the peer group, right? And then you see basically how often did this book been mentioned.
Mm-hmm.
And what you can do now is actually you don't sort it by frequency only, but what you can do is you can now create scores, right? So you can say basically what is actually frequency times average rating as score, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you order it by score descending. And then you have this is like the total score. Then things might change. And then you can give different weights, right? So you can say, okay, 1.0 times the frequency, and then basically that many times the ratings, right? So you can like 0.8 times the rating or something like that, or plus. Then you can also do a plus score and something like this, right? Or similar things, or you normalize it on the same baseline, and then so that's really nice because then you can pull in like also the authors as an additional scoring, and so you basically build up a recommendation query bit by bit where the different aspects of the recommended book are different contributing factors to the score, to the final score, right? So you would say kind of overlapping authors get like score X, like tags that are not like genre tags. If I had genre tags, then you would say this is kind of something that gets Y as an additional because I like certain genres or something like that, right? And then you can basically work with these weights on these scores to basically say can adjust this as well. And this is actually where even your user can say, for me, kind of my peer group is more important than the average rating, or like the genre is more important than the author, or whatever, right? So then they can actually have sliders where they, in principle, even control their recommendations by weighting the different scores differently as such, right? And this is now,
give me a recommendation. Currently, I'm feeling like reading let's say historic novel, or I'm currently into autobiographies or something like that, and I can say, okay, I want a recommendation from that genre or from that type of book, and then you get a very customized recommendation for what you're currently up to.
And if you look at this, it's really like a recommendation in 3 lines, right? Find a user and their peer group and their recommendations, kind of excluding books that they've already rated themselves, getting peer group basically by reading really closely, and then what they recommend, and then get the frequency. All the other stuff at the end is basically just collecting additional information. But this is the actual recommendation, right? In 3 lines of query, basically.
Very
can even
simple.
print it on a T-shirt, basically, or something like that. So that's kind of my Goodreads recommendation query or something like that. So cool. We're also out of time, but I think this was a really good data set to work with, and I think we used it quite nicely, and also saw some of the shortcomings, like the tags and so on. One thing that I want to just quickly call out is basically it says the data set is obsolete because it contains duplicate ratings between books and users. But it's not a big deal for us because in our import, it actually normalizes these, and between one book and one user, there will be only one relationship added as such. So it's not a big deal for us, because for us, it's the importer already normalizes that as well. So you don't have to worry about that aspect.
Okay.
Cool. And this is actually one of the Aura databases that's pretty full as such, right? So if you look at the percentages, so this is 98% notes, and
this is maxed out almost,
almost maxed out. So, and then if you want to, then you can go to settings. That's actually settings. Where did they move it? I can't see anymore. Then clone. Oh, here you can clone to a new AuraDB instance and then increase the sizes, basically.
Yeah,
that's how it works. It's a little bit hidden, but so it should be more obvious how you can upgrade this as such.
Yeah, maybe, yeah, upgrade.
Actually, in the data importer, it has like a message that please consider upgrading to next tier.
Yeah.
So they did have a pointer to this. Yeah, so that's it for today. I think this was really
maybe something for an update of the visual thing. Like if you are beyond 80% of your Aura FreeDB, then maybe an upgrade button should appear or something.
Yeah, exactly. That would be really good.
We can recommend that to the team.
Exactly. Cool. So this was fun, Alex. I really enjoyed it.
It was very fun. Thank you, Michael. Thank you for giving us the tour and for showing us how quickly you can start with AuraDB and a good data set to drive recommendations. So that's shows how easy it can be and how quickly you can go from basically a couple of CSV files into a recommendation system almost. So it's what that did, it took us now 40 minutes or so from
and the actual import was only like 10 minutes in total.
Exactly.
Right? So
so super fast.
Yeah, that was really cool. Nice. And it's a good data set to explore graphs and kind of relationships between the data.
Absolutely.
Cool.
All right. What's coming up is tomorrow I'm joined by Xixing Huang from MSG on a robot or actually a chatbot for digital health. It's called Dr. AI. He built that with Neo4j. So we will go about this, and he will do
Yeah.
some demo and showcasing of what
He's
he,
really
what he
good.
did.
So he has also amazing content on Medium. So if you have not seen his stuff and you're interested in healthcare topics, then and chemistry and biochemistry and life sciences, then he has tons of good stuff. So definitely check it out. As such,
Yeah,
really recommend it.
that's going to be fun tomorrow evening, and we'll be back next Monday with our Graph Connect warm-up episode, I guess.
Yep.
And
And on Tuesday
until
with
then,
office hours, yeah.
Exactly, and office hours also next week.
Super.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for joining. Again, link and everything else to important bits will be in the description. And hope to speak to you soon. Have a good rest of your week. Take care, everybody, and stay safe. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah. Take care. Bye-bye.